Welcome everybody to the joint Central 9th and Ballpark. What month is it? October 2022 Community Council meeting. So lovely to see so many great faces logging on to this meeting. Thank you everybody for your time on this beautiful Thursday evening. See a lot of names that I like. Great. Okay. Some new names logging on tonight. And some new presenters. So we're gonna click through and make a lot of you co-hosts if we recognize your name and we know that you're going to be presenting. And if you're going to be presenting, please raise your hand and we'll try to make you co-host so we can so you can share slides. Seems important. We've got a couple development presentations today. That's great. And we've got city presentations. Detective Fallows, you're on here somewhere and you're going to talk to us about some public safety stuff. Detective Fallows, would you raise your proverbial hand so you pop up on the first page or so? Oh, I see you. And I'd like to give a shout out to my co-host today, Doug Flagler, Chair of Central 9th. Doug, would you like to introduce yourself and say hello?
Yeah, hi, I'm Doug Flagler. I'm the chair of the Central 9th Community Council. We had a meeting last month that was very productive, and we talked about the 900 South reconstruction project and some rebranding of the neighborhood. And looking forward to some of the discussion that we'll have tonight.
Terrific. All right, so we generally begin with public safety updates. Detective Sam Fallows, we were looking for you. Oh, there you are. Hello, Detective Fallows. How's it going?
How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Thank you.
All righty. Good to be here with everybody. Let me just pull up one other quick thing and then we can get going. So just for those of you that may or may not know, I'm the District 5 Community Liaison Detective for the area. I cover 5, 6, and 7 in Salt Lake City. I try to kind of just help problem solve issues that some of the neighborhoods might be having, and trying to work together with the community councils to find creative solutions to those problems. So something else I do is I report on the crime in the areas every month. And so we'll go ahead and just kind of start with that real quick. This is going to be a combined for Ballpark and Central 9th. We had a total of 461 reported Part 1 and Part 2 crimes in Ballpark, and an additional 37 in Central 9th. The top ones that we saw throughout the month were larcenies and thefts. There was 114 of those, assaults, some drug abuse, crimes, frauds, and vandalisms were kind of the ones that stuck out the most. So a lot of times we see with our property crimes, which are generally one of the highest ones we see people kind of using the fraud kind of goes along with that. So it's a good reminder to try and lock up our vehicles, take anything of value out of our vehicles, and just try and all around, put your stuff away. Make sure your cars are put away if you can at night in your garage. If you don't have one, just make sure your lights are on, things like that.
Detective Fallows, I know, in contrast to some other neighborhoods in District 5, we've got a pretty large commercial corridor going through our neighborhood, right? We've got the world's largest Costco, we've got Target, we've got Walmart.
Yep.
Are some of those crimes that you're mentioning just a consequence of having those large box stores in our neighborhood and what happens there?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say probably a majority of the thefts are shoplifting calls coming from the Walmart and the Target and those bigger box chain stores, like you said. Some of the other calls for sure, like maybe the assaults, things like that, might be just due to other issues in the neighborhoods. But definitely most of the thefts, some of the vandalisms, things like that, or excuse me, some of the frauds definitely come from that. And then I wanted to give a couple of updates for the neighborhood. The first one, just to kind of piggyback on last month, we do have, for the businesses and also for homeowners as well, if you're interested, we do have the no trespass signs that are actually in stock now. So if you go in, you can actually get some. I know last time we were kind of waiting to see when that was supposed to happen, and it took a little bit longer. So if that's something you've been waiting on as a business owner or property owner, you can go into our city. Again, you can access the, actually here, I'll put it up in the chat. I'll put up some links in the chat. You can access the no trespass affidavit. Yeah, just kind of fill it out, and either you can either get it notarized, or you can bring it into the city and they can help notarize it during certain business hours when they have notaries on. So sometimes I just tell people to just kind of get it notarized before you come in, just to make sure, but they usually have someone there that can help. So that'll be the very first link that I put up in the chat there, along with my contact information is in there as well. And then all the stats that I talk about, and Amy's really good about delving into these. She loves that stuff, and it's good to know. It's good to be informed on your neighborhood and other neighborhoods throughout the city. But the SLCP online stats can be found at the other link that I put up there. It's kind of interesting to delve in and just kind of see comparative to, how you are compared to other neighborhoods, or maybe how you're, you can break it down even to like beats and stuff like that. And so pretty interesting to see that. So that's one update we have. And then I know we talked a little bit about the loading dock update last time. There's just a small update on that, and that is that they've been formally charged now, and that they've been arrested, and that's all proceeding as it should through the courts. So good to
Just a
hear.
reminder, folks, the loading dock was the shooting that happened on July 3rd. There were about 40 to 50 bullets that were fired during that shooting. It happened at 5:30 a.m. It's kind of a big deal. I think, even though there were no fatalities involved in that shooting, still stirred us up quite a bit, I'd say.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. And, our detectives worked really hard on that case, and they were able to, like I said, get those people charged and everything within the court system. So good job on them, and good work on them. And then also, let me just look through my notes here. Also, we're coming up into the cold season. So I know a concern within the neighborhood, especially the Ballpark neighborhood, is fires. Please, if you see fires, call 911 and let them know. I am going to be meeting and kind of figuring out what we're going to do to kind of help mitigate some of those issues in Ballpark this winter. So I haven't had a chance to have that meeting yet, but that is one of my intentions that will happen over the next couple of weeks, is to meet and just kind of figure out like how we can help the fire department, and also to mitigate some of those issues. So the main thing I'm going to ask of you guys as our citizens in Ballpark is just to, if you see a fire, to just basically call, and I know you guys do, but just continue to call on those, so that number one, we can put the stats together and say, hey, this is how many fires we're having. And then number two, to help us kind of understand where they're at and how we can deal with them. So that all helps quite a bit. So if you're seeing something, please call, and that will help us tremendously with that. But that is my intention, and I'll have more updates on that probably next, hopefully by the next meeting in November. If anybody has any specific questions, sorry, while I'm talking, feel free to put them up in the chat and I can get to those. Maybe there's one already. Let me see. So to answer Andy Tran's question, last year we were told that warming fires were okay. Is that going to be the same this year? So that's part of what I'm going to meet about and kind of figure out what their protocol is going to be, how we can maybe figure that out. And hey, Jim, how we can figure that out, and what we can do to make sure that businesses, residents, and everyone else is safe from having their businesses destroyed. Because I know it was a major issue last winter. So that is going to be definitely part of the meeting that I have.
Detective Fallows, I had one question. We had a resident of the Central Ninth neighborhood tackle a arson suspect, and also a reporter for Channel 2 who was out on a live shot and had a arson started that he put out. Do you have any information any of those, or?
I don't have specific information. So one of the things that we sometimes we can't give out specific information on cases depending on. So I can talk about like the loading dock case, for instance, because our PR unit has put out a lot of information on that case. So I kind of have to get either some kind of a PR thing that can help me to know what I'm allowed to say and not allowed to say, things like that. So, but I don't know anything specific about that case. Or what, did it happen pretty recently?
Yes, it happened within probably a month ago.
A month ago.
And I know there's been reports of several arsons in our neighborhood of trash cans and whatnot set on fire. And one of our businesses within the last year, I want to say, had their front doors set on fire of their business. And so I know it's kind of been a concern in the Central Ninth area. Yeah,
for sure. No doubt. And I would just say, number one, like I would say good job on tackling it, but don't get yourself hurt either. But yeah, that's just call 911 if you're seeing something like that. And if you feel safe enough to do something like, that, then yeah, call 911, let them know what's going on. Because arson and warming fires are two completely very, very different things. Right. And so I don't understand. I don't completely know what the fire department's outlook is going to be this year. And again, that's why I said I'm going to have that meeting. But when it comes to warming fires, but and
these
like
are
an intentional thing where they're trying to damage property on purpose, right? And so that's always a crime, no matter what. So
yeah, and these definitely seems intentional to cause damage. So
yeah, absolutely.
So is there a way that for like the next meeting you're able to look and at least get us stats on how many were reported or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I can. Absolutely. I can reach out to our CompStat unit, and I can even reach out to PR and say, hey, like, what can you write me up something that I can give to Ballpark on this? And definitely can do that. Absolutely. We'll do so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Douglas. Ray Duckworth put, what are we doing to ensure there will be warmth and heat available so we can eliminate fire creating with access to warming resources? That isn't really the police department won't really handle that, but that's more going to be like with the HRC, with the homeless resource centers and things like that. They're trying to put together beds to keep people warm during the winter. They're trying to put together plans now to take care of that. But really not really a police department issue. Jim Grizzly put, what is the current law on panhandling on city property? Anywhere where it's public property, it is legal to panhandle. So that's been handed down to the Supreme Court, that people are allowed to panhandle as long as they're on public property and as long as they are not. So like if they're on business property, that's completely different, but if they're on public property, they are allowed to do so. Were there any other questions?
Sounds like you have a charge to come back with us about some specific information about fires, Detective Fallows.
Yes, I will make that my priority for the next meeting. We'll have some good updates, or I'll have something for our next meeting to give a little more information on that and how we can deal with that and mitigate that.
Sounds like we need also not just, what's the policy, but if the policy is no fires, then what's the direction that we can push people in so that they can have access to resources that aren't an unsheltered space.
Yeah, for sure. And and then on arsons too, just so the police department can help take like initial reports, but generally those get investigated by the fire department as well. So it might be worth having someone from the fire department, specifically Amy, that you could reach out to come on to the Ballpark as well and kind of talk about it. Because they are the ones that do investigate those for the most part. Well, not for the most part, like they are the ones that investigate arsons. And so they would have even more information on it. And I can talk to our CompStat unit and I can figure out like, how much we've had and things like that, but they'll have more information on like case adjudication, things like that for sure. So were there any other questions? Can we get a Wayne's Corner update? Wayne's Corner is something that I'm working on with some of the city, just with different city partners, but also with within the police department. So I am currently working on it. It's just trying to find different times and get people where they can have time to work with me on as well. But yeah, I am working on it. So that's really the only update I can give on that right now.
Thank you, Detective Fallows. And I just want to give one more shout out. Thank you so much for giving us a new neighborhood watch sign. I appreciate it. Those of us on Merrimack Avenue are aware that our neighborhood watch sign has been graffitied and scrubbed so many times. It kind of doesn't say neighborhood watch on it anymore, which I think sort of might portray the opposite of what it intends, you know, kind of maybe doesn't really get across what we would like it to anymore. So I'm hoping to connect with somebody who can help put up the replacement instead of the one that's kind of dingy and not as bright and cheerful. Because gosh, we have a robust neighborhood watch group, don't we? Don't we? Anyway.
That sign looks much better, I think.
Oh, this sign looks great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Detective Fallows. Look
All
forward
right.
to learning more about fire policy, all aspects. But
Perfect.
also we can connect with fire as well. And also Wayne's Corner. But, you know, I understand that's a longer medium-term goal, but maybe now that we're going to get activation on Kensington Avenue, maybe that will help other spaces become less negatively activated.
Absolutely.
All right, moving right along. Okay, we've got a packed agenda tonight. So let's scoot along. All right, we've got 2 building proposals here. Let's see. Folks here to talk about West Temple. Could I get a hand? Nanette, you're not here to talk about West Temple. Yes, you are. Oh, wrong Nanette. Excuse me. I'm thinking of Nanette Condi. I'm so wrong. Excuse me. We've got multiple Nanettes in the neighborhood. My apologies. Nanette Condi is a candy maker and small business owner on Main Street, and she would be here for an entirely different purpose. My bad.
So yeah, would you like me to start, Amy, with the brief overview?
I would. And Brian Scott, I'm also asking you to unmute if you'd like to.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey there. All right, great. Thank you.
And I'll just give a brief overview and then allow the applicants, I think we have Brian Scott and Sitar Tabriz here as well. So these are 3 properties that include 1350 South, 1358 South, 1370 South West Temple. And the application is for master plan, future land use amendment, and a rezone. The master plan future land use amendment is currently medium density transit oriented development, and the property owner would like to amend that to high density transit oriented development. And then the zoning map is currently residential business, and the proposal is to amend that to TSA UCC, which is Transit Station Area Urban Center Core Zoning District. Because these are amendments, it does go to City Council. It will first go to Planning Commission for review and recommendation to City Council, and City Council makes the final determination. And I'll hand it over to the applicants.
Okay. It says that I'm not able to share my screen.
We must make you co-host. Doug, would you be so kind as to enable him to have powers?
I'm working on it. It's being
Thank you.
difficult today.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forget that you're on your iPad. That
Yes.
gets you have a little less screen capacity. If you want to swap host and co-host with me so we can, I'm working on my laptop, so I've got a little bit more. Be happy to do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to that point where I can do anything.
So I can start going, and when I
If you want to
get
start,
in,
and
I'll pull up the screen. But so yeah, as Nanette mentioned, it's these three parcels right on West Temple, right near 13th South, and they're right next to a large parking lot that's right there on the corner. And for us, really, this stems out of kind of our excitement about the upcoming ballpark station area plan, and our kind of just our excitement about that and kind of its vision for that area, for West Temple to be a festival street there, for some of the changes that it's kind of foreseeing. And so we kind of wanted to get a jump start on that. And so what we did is kind of one of the first things in that ballpark station area plan is to create a TSA zone for the station area. And so what we did was basically took the most similar TSA zone based on kind of all the building height and density requirements that there are, and said that we wanted to apply for that so that we can, again, kind of get a jump start on it, get this going, and try and set a standard for the development for the area. And I mean, because it's not entirely specific to this area, we're also very interested in just what the community wants to kind of add to those, add to that zoning requirement. So what would make sense specifically for this area to kind of try and get a more site specific zoning. And so we're here to mostly just to listen and see what your guys' thoughts are, and if you have questions. And if I'm able to share, oh, there we go. So this is just Google Earth. And so the site is these three properties right here. It's directly across from the ballpark. One of the entrances is right there. It fronts on kind of those properties. It's right next to the ballpark apartments, which are similar height. And I can show you quickly. So part of what we kind of put together for the application is kind of a feasibility study. So just a rough idea of what we would be looking at. And so the apartment layout that we did is basically it's 2.5 levels of structured parking with 5 levels of residential above it. It's got commercial storefront activation all along West Temple to try and play with benefit that festival street idea. And so it's about 130 apartment units and 150 parking stalls is what we've got currently. And then we put together just some kind of example elevations for what it could look like. We have a couple of options in here, and we do that because we're so early in the design process that we can't say this is what we're going to build. So we want to make sure that we convey like this is kind of the range of things that could be put in here. So some that are kind of more traditional brick, and then some that are a little more out there. But really, it's about this massing. And so this is actually taken out of that ballpark master plan, and is looking, and this is kind of showing some of the density that they're envisioning for the nearby areas, and then showing our building in that context. So with that, I think we're open to questions and anything else that you guys would like to chat about. So Sitar, is there anything you want to add before we do that, or?
No, I think, responding to questions, I think it would be nice for you to show the elevation, the conceptual elevation, just to see how the parking and the building kind of work together. The sketch, not this one, the sketch. I think it's down somewhere in your presentation.
So like the section?
Yeah, the sections.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, just, you mentioned 2.5,
2.5 levels of parking.
It's really that it is kind of pretty clever parking design, I think. It's designed to allow for the, the commercial out of West Temple on the West Temple side. and we still kind of respecting that groundwater elevation, etc.
Yeah, so this would be West Temple. So the parking's all behind the kind of
Exactly.
commercial frontage retail space that would go on along that frontage. So, yep.
If I may ask, I'm just picturing in my mind that area from having been down around. What is having to come down for this to be placed there? Aren't there some single family homes there, or what is there now?
Welcome, soon to be Senator Jen Plum. Thank you for attending our meeting tonight.
Oh, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I did the blurt thing. Apologies.
Good. So yes, it's currently 2 houses, and then what's run out of this business, Sitar?
It used to be my personal office, engineering office. Right now, it's a kind of a rehab place for younger kids. They kind of hang in there and they get some classes and training.
Gotcha.
Brian, would you stop screen sharing and I can show a photo of it?
Absolutely. Figure that out. Oh. Sorry. No.
It is a 2-story office building at the corner and a bookstore. It's a single family home that it's been kind of converted to a bookstore on 1358 South. And 1350 South is an existing residential building that owner of the bookstore used to live in it.
Sorry, I'm not seeing how I can get rid of that. All I have is a little dialogue along the side. Sorry.
Thanks so much. All right. Can folks see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the single family home that's currently at 1350 Southwest Temple. And I think it was owned by a Sarah Tanner.
Sandra.
Oh, thank you, Sandra. Exactly. And it was built in 1903. Do you think the building has historical significance?
Who's the question at? Is that question to the applicant?
I guess to the applicant, but maybe even to other folks in the audience tonight too, since you were interested in the community's opinion. Now, did you have any plans to preserve this building?
Well, if I may, yeah, I mean, anytime you look at a building this old, it breaks your heart to even consider to tear it down. And we've considered, obviously, and it makes us sad that, we've actually come to a conclusion that the best use of the property is actually something similar to what we are proposing. I mean, obviously, it doesn't need to be exactly the same, project, but something very similar.
Are
Yeah.
those two different issues, if the building can be preserved or moved and if the property can be used for something else?
Well, we haven't gotten to that level of investigation, to be honest with you. But we have definitely have an interest to preserve or remove and recreate parts of the building in the design of our project. For example, this morning we were having a conversation with our principal architect, and perhaps one of the rooms in the building will be recreated in the lobby area of the apartments. Could be a place that we can rent it out. There's some really nice woodwork inside the building, not a whole bunch, but some. A pocket door, perhaps those will be salvaged and utilized.
Yeah.
The owner tells us, this Miss Sandra Tanner, that the building is not safe, but I'm sure any building can be repaired and fixed, but she wouldn't want to live there. And it's a question of what is best for the land. We, as a development team, feel what we propose is pretty sensible project.
Yeah, so that was kind of so I'm on the architecture team, and when we came on, that was probably our biggest concern, and kind of gave us the most pause, was that looking at this, it does have some interesting things going on. And we struggled with that ourselves, but ultimately we did kind of decide that we think the best use for it really is multifamily, and is something that will activate that festival street and work with the ballpark plan. We're definitely interested in salvaging or reusing, or somehow paying homage to this. But we did. Our position is that we do think that the best use would be for it to be multifamily with some commercial along that stretch. So,
if I'm out of line in asking that, please feel free to tell me. As I'm learning more about different communities and neighborhoods and the requirements for each of them in looking at policy, et cetera, I just, as I've sat in an avenues councils, I've sat in other councils, it seems to me that I would hate for the ballpark to feel that it is being bulldozed at rates different than other neighborhoods. And so I wonder if there is any sort of, metric on this, on the rates at which things are being torn down and put up from neighborhood to neighborhood or zone to zone. And I don't know, and I may be a little bit of I like old houses and charm. So it makes me feel a little gut punched to think that's going away. But that doesn't mean that may not be the most practical use or the most developer friendly use. But I just, for me, that's something that comes to me is there any kind of equity between neighborhoods and how they decide what they will and won't let demolish. I don't think they'd let you pull that down on 17th East. Not saying 17th East that's the right plan. I'm just saying there's differences in the way these are looked at.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know of any kind of metric that measures that kind of cross district or anything like that. I think for us, the biggest thing is that it's an outlier. And so it's, again, going back to the master or the ballpark area plan that they're looking at what they could do on that corner lot that's currently a parking lot, and either, I think there's been talk about that being multifamily, or it being a library, or being some other kind of civic building. So it would be kind of a similar scale, and with the ballpark apartments on the other side, it's kind of trapped between them, and it's literally like if you look out the front door, it's the entrance to the Bee Stadium. So it's kind of just because of its location is really our main thought on that. So,
and then if I can speak to the equity, and as far as like statistically how buildings, historic buildings are being demolished. In different locations in the city, we have local historic districts, and local historic districts are generally considered, they're kind of created based on property owners, like, 80% of property owners request a local historic district. So different areas in the city, like the avenues in Central City and Westmoreland Place, are local historic districts, and demolition is limited if it's a contributing or a significant structure. In the Ballpark area, there isn't any local historic districts. There's actually, I think, the only national historic district, which doesn't have any regulations. It only has incentives to improve a historic structure. It's located more towards the central 9th area rather than near 1300 South. So for a property like this, yes, it is a historic district. Preservation Utah and the State Historical Preservation Office, they don't have any easements, preservation easements. There's not a local historic district. There's not a national historic district. So there's no regulations for the city to say that you're not able to demolish this site just because that hasn't been set up before this application and the property owner didn't request it. So really, we're not necessarily, the discussion isn't necessarily whether this should be a historic building. If the applicant wanted to demolish tomorrow, we would have to issue the demolition permit. What we're looking at is a change of zoning district. Right now it's residential business, and they're requesting a transit station area urban center. I hope that clarifies things.
It definitely helps paint the landscape, so thank you.
Dr. Plum, I think part of the issue with getting 80% of homeowners in Ballpark to do anything is the issue that our neighborhood is 85% renters and only 15% owner-occupied homes. And that puts us at a very different perspective than most other neighborhoods in Salt Lake City. So that sort of changes the landscape as well.
Okay.
It's not to say, I don't want to give the impression that it's impossible. Amy, I'm happy to send you the standards for designating a local historic district if you would like to discuss it with residents.
Nana, I'm afraid, as somebody who lives in a 9-year-old townhome, I would be grossly not the right person to lead the charge on that issue, but I appreciate it. I just don't think I'd be.
Yeah,
the
I
right
don't want to
choice.
be like, you can't designate a local historic district, but on this property, we have this application. It's not designated within a local historic district. It's not a landmark. It's not a significant structure. It is a historic structure, but it's not protected.
I appreciate that distinction, that it's a historic structure, but it isn't protected.
Yes.
It's curious, you can even see that, like, Sandra Tanner herself was I appreciate that she may not want to continue living in the home, and I suspect that may be due to reasons of, I might presume, and this, forgive me, but that might be due to reasons of age and mobility, but she has had quite an interesting role to play in Utah and Mormon history, and you can access some of the interviews that she has had archived. They're very interesting. And the Utah Lighthouse Ministry Bookstore itself, which is housed and will also be redistricted, I think has also played an interesting role. I found that interesting. But I suppose that's not the conversation before us today. I'm sorry, Jeff, you've had your hand up forever. Would you care to articulate your question?
I'd just like to challenge the developer to see if there is any possibility that that structure could be relocated to another lot or parcel somewhere else in the city. Particularly the 1350 Southwest Temple home. It's a beautiful house. It's a shame to just tear it down. If it were to even be donated, would somebody be able to move it to another location? Would that be an option you could consider?
Of course, of course. I mean, you know, if there is an interest and a party that would like to be a party to this and help with the process of all kinds of process, of course. And at minimum, what we will do, and of course, we would want to bring that components of the building to our architecture. And I mean, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I love the history as a whole, and this one has a unique history. The person who's lived in there, it's a unique structure. And like I said, there's some interesting components inside of the building, but you know, you guys need to be the judge yourself to see it. And there's components of it which makes it interesting to reuse. And you know, if not the whole structure to be used, maybe the facade can be relocated to another place, Mr. Sandstorm. And you know, yeah, there's some ways that we can preserve partially or fully components or totally. You know, we haven't looked at it. We haven't looked at it at this point. We are here in front of you to discuss your input on the master plan and also rezone, but I am 100% willing to consider all that.
Thank you.
Brittany Helmers had a question, if you've involved Preservation Utah with this project?
We have not. We haven't. No, we haven't reached out or dealt with them for this.
It sounds like there's community interest that you initiate that conversation.
Yeah. Yep, we can, that's, I think, one of the things we'll explore out of this, so. Well, is anything else? We're happy to stay and answer, but we don't want to hold you up. I know you have a busy schedule, so.
Doug, do you see anything we've missed?
Looked like there are a couple of questions people had about parking requirements, et cetera, but that's just me scanning back through.
Thank you, Senator Plum to be. It was slightly greater ratio of parking to units, right? 150 to 138.
Yeah, so that's what we have right now. In part, that's because there's also commercial space in addition.
I see.
And the TSA zone actually, I can't remember. It has either no or low, very low parking requirements, but we're planning to kind of park 1-to-1 for apartments and then additionally for commercial space, so that it's not the area, especially on game days, is already obviously overburdened for parking, and so we don't want to create further burden.
Some of other buildings, including park apartments, they have half a parking per unit. We would like to have as close to 1 parking per unit as we can.
I have a question. I'm not Sierra, I'm her husband, so pardon me for hijacking her phone here.
You're a good substitute.
I have a comment and then a couple questions specific, I guess, to the site. I think I echo all the concerns of like, this community doesn't have the kind of owner occupied representation that other communities have. And that's been a challenge as a active participant in my civic, responsibilities of the city. It's hard because there's only a few of us who are truly engaged in the process here. And so, kind of along those lines, I guess, or another comment, but I'll get back to that one, is one of the challenges we have is this kind of Ballpark has this single family homes down the middle here. And there's this general kind of trend of encroachment, essentially, of this high density all around the perimeter. And it's, and I've heard the term urban wall, and that's a real thing, and we're just getting kind of shadowed by these larger structures. And I would, in the development of, the plans, I would challenge the developer here to kind of think about that. And, I don't think people like living in shadows. And it's just not, it's not pedestrian friendly. It's not neighborhood friendly. It's not approachable in that sense. So I would challenge you to think about that really hard when you put this structure in and maybe other structures around these communities, because it's just not, it's just hard. It's hard to see it happen, and being boxed. And as a landowner, I just think, well, maybe I should just bail and sell out, and we'll rezone my property and put a giant structure in. But that's not what the neighborhood is. So, but specific to your property, and that owner occupied piece, I just sense that it's all rentals. And is there an opportunity here to kind of switch the script here and do owner occupied properties, or some of it or all of it or whatever? I mean, what's preventing that from happening? That's my first question. And then the second piece is kind of specific to the structure in that frontage. I hear the term activation all the time. It's just, I think it's overused and underexplained at how that reality, comes to fruition, because there's a lot of places that say that, and there's just no activation underneath, at the street level. And I think that's a major kind of oversight in the planning of and the zoning of these structures. They're just not, it's not activating like that. So those are the kind of two questions I'd ask you to answer: the owner occupied piece, and then how do you plan to activate?
Yeah, I mean, Satar can confirm, but I think we'd absolutely be open to having that be the business model, where it's owner occupied instead of rental. I think I at least would definitely be open to that. Satar?
Yeah, it's just how the neighborhood is. It seems like there's a geographical boundary is taking place, and I totally agree with you. It's about 1400 south, and right now there's a structure 75 feet tall being placed on 1400 south, and just to the west of West Temple, and it goes all the way to the railroad track, and then obviously 13th south and West Temple. I totally understand the questions and the shadows. And I know the property to the west of our property, immediately due to west of us, it's used to be Carver Steel.
Right.
That was purchased by a developer, and they have approached us. And we are, as two developers, we are coordinating our efforts, to have a nicer entry. We don't want to have one entry for them and another one for us, just kind of, we want to be friendly to each other as for access and everything else. And, they're building 75 feet tall building there. At least that's what we've been told. Yeah. And so
can I jump in real quick? So I think on that kind of idea, our view is that because of what's around it, because it's, got the stadium on one side, multifamily on another, possibly multifamily on the other side, and then industrial behind, that one of the best ways to protect that residential character in other places is to create this kind of urban core and say that this is the place where it is going to be dense, to prevent it sprawling out like that. And that's kind of what we view. That's kind of our take on that, is that this is a good spot to do that because it will prevent that elsewhere. And then in terms of activation, what it means is that basically there's all for the entire frontage of West Temple, there's 25 feet deep that is going to be some kind of retail space. It'll be a store or a restaurant or some other kind of amenity like that.
Or a dentist office or a firm that no one goes in and out. I mean, I get the restaurant piece, but I'm a little frustrated that it's a leasing office or something that it's just not active. There's not people coming in and out regularly. And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The activation is oftentimes a bit of a farce and overused. I'm challenging you, right? It would be nice that if it actually, when you say it's activated, it actually is, because the current practice is not activating these, it's all happening. There's huge development, right, in these neighborhoods. I mean, it's not a secret, right? There's bargain prices, or were at least, and the development's happening, and they're claiming activation, they're rezoning, and it's just not happening. That's my hope, is that it is, but it's not. So parking structures are not active. A doorway to a leasing office is not active.
No, we agree 100%. That was actually one of the terms we kind of locked in with Sitar when we took the project on, was that we would do that for here.
Right, bay doors, right? Big bay doors that open up, right? Huge garage doors that open up to restaurants and courtyards and things like. I know you can't. It's kind of wasted space and you lose money doing that, but that's active, right? And if you go into these neighborhoods and you see these patios, that's active, right? People are out there. People want to go into these spaces. It's in the festival area. That's what we want, not a wall, right, with some windows and you're like, oh, cool, someone's in there on a computer. Like, that's not active, right? So I'm this is coming from the heart here, that I get it. This is a good spot, what you're saying, right? I understand the building's beautiful from the outside, who knows? That's a shame, but I'm with you. There's this giant ballpark thing there, the structure, the apartments. It makes sense what you're saying, but that frontage, do something, man, that works for the community, please.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely what our plan is. And again, kind of what sparked a lot of this for us was the Ballpark area plan. And so their vision, at least, is that street, that section of West Temple, becomes something that gets shut down on certain days and becomes kind of, a farmer's market or a festival area or whatever. And that's exactly the kind of use we want to promote there. And so, but I appreciate that.
Thanks for listening.
And if I may add to that challenge, I would like to take that challenge and perhaps compare that with what's happening on Central 9 area, that little commercial strip. I know it has been a struggle, and that market has moved out 3 times, but finally there's a market in place now, and it is actually happening. You guys, I don't need to say this, but there needs to be a balance between rooftops, the doors, and the commercial activities to kind of start working together. With the ballpark being next door, I think that's for several months, 4 or 5 months of the year. That's a good, nice little catalyst for, active businesses to be there. It could be a souvenir store, but I can guarantee you there's going to be a food establishment component to that. And among ourselves, we have we're following the master plan for the ballpark. There's a walkway which takes us from the middle of the block into to the West Temple on the north side of us. We're actually giving up 10 feet of our property for that because it's a good plan. And we are actually considering a public plaza out on the West Temple. You know, I don't think the idea here is to utilize every inch of our property for profit. You know, we want to do a project which is consistent. And I really appreciate the input that we are getting from you, Mr. Combs. And that's exactly why we are here. And, you know, we don't have this is a little commercial, a lot of residential. So we are willing to work with the wishes of the neighborhood and make that small commercial to be exactly what we need, this neighborhood needs. And that's easy. I mean, if it was 100,000 square foot of commercial, you know, we kind of let the market takes its course. But with 5,000 square foot that we have, you know, we can be a little picky on who we want and who we don't want. And, you know, part of what we are talking here is a development agreement. I mean, we haven't talked about that. Most probably there will be a development agreement. And, you know, some of these requirements can be, you know, put in there so it ties into the property and not just me telling you what we would do. And so we are here to play, you know, ball with you guys and make it a project that is good for the city, good for the community, and obviously good for us as a church, good for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sounds like there's one more question about if you all have an interest in developing affordable units as part of your project. I
Okay.
realize that would work sort of against the idea of developing for sale units, which is another thing the community is quite interested in.
Yes,
So I
yes, and
appreciate
yes.
I appreciate that one project cannot be all things to the neighborhood, and you're allowed to answer that as well. I'm just asking because the question exists and I'm trying to facilitate.
We have certain interest on this project. It's a, you know, it's a very, you know, if there's a good location for a nice project, this would be one of them. It's next to the ballpark. It's very geographically, it's an amazing spot. And you don't want to do a inferior project here. You want to do a best one. We have interest, I cannot mention names, but very premier developers that are doing affordable housing and the for sale housing and also apartments. And those are all the options. You know, we hope that we are the developers, but there's a good possibility that once we get this packaged nicely to the requirements that you need, there's another developer who comes in and would be just doing affordable, at least a component of it to be affordable housing. And in fact, one developer that we are talking to, and they are basically queued in to do this project. Once we get the rezone, they would want to put affordable housing component into this. And yeah, it's a little too early in the game for us to know everything, but I appreciate the input so we can start put them in a little box here and start working towards those goals.
Okay, so just one more clarifying question on the part of me, the community council chair. It sounds, the tone of this conversation from your end was that you're sort of getting preliminary feedback. However, to get a rezone, feedback from us, the recognized community organization, is due back to the planning commission, the planning division, by November 7th. How would you like us to handle that? Are we to say that we understand that you're still in the preliminary stages and we don't really understand where you are in the project? I'm not really sure how to handle that when so many things are up in the air?
No, I think that, I mean, we're preliminary in some senses, but I think what we'd like is all of these things that you like kind of added in, or kind of as part of a development agreement, or, you know, things about like someone was just talking about sidewalk widths, things like we want this, you know, we want wider sidewalks and of this length, and anything like that we can kind of specifically set as part of the zoning is kind of what we're looking for in that sense.
I think some of the community's goodwill is going to be dependent on some of the answers to the questions that we posed to you today. And I haven't heard any firm answers to any of the questions we've posed to you today.
Well, maybe I don't understand the process. What we're saying, every question that has been raised here today, we will take that into consideration. If you feel that that is necessary to be included in a development agreement between us and the city, we like to go work towards it, so the community feels that they get what they want. The questions, can we go through the questions? I mean, historical preservation is one of them. You've asked us to consider that part. And then, you know, we just talked about affordable housing. You know, we can't just sit and tell you today we're going to do affordable housing if the available tools are not there for us to do the available housing. We want to get the rezone and the master plan amendment so we actually can draw in a project that does what we are looking for. I don't know if I'm making sense, but maybe Nanette can, you know, add some thoughts to this.
Yeah, so before this project, the proposed amendments go to City Council, it will need to go to Planning Commission. The city does accept development agreements. Development agreements are a legal agreement with the city. And certain things are difficult to put in a development agreement. Generally, development agreements look at building materials, setbacks, landscaping, possibly. But when we look at like sidewalk widths, I feel like the Ballpark Station area plan has addressed the sidewalk widths. If there's, you know, a recommendation from the City Council to include a development agreement to preserve building materials or something from that historic structure, that's something that we could talk about through a development agreement, but it has to be site specific. I don't think, I mean, I would have to talk to one of our attorneys at the city to see exactly what we can put in a development agreement. It generally, when the city makes requirements as far as zoning, the zoning district goes, it has to be site specific and it has to be development specific. So like the removal of that house to another site, I can't speak whether that's something that the city is legally able to pursue. I can check, Amy, if you'd like to contact me in a few days, I can check with our attorney to see if it's possible and if it's legal for the city to pursue. If the community was looking at making recommendations, something that's site specific, building specific, is potentially something that a development agreement could include. Activated uses in the TSA district, it requires 80% active use. How that, if you're looking at a specific use over another, that's possible. But we would have to look more into it before the project gets to either planning commission or city council, but it's possible.
Nana, just to kind of wrap this up, since we do have a lot of things on our agenda, what are other avenues for people to ask questions and comment on this going forward?
So anyone is welcome to call or email me. I can put my email address in the chat before I leave today, so everyone has it. If you would like to comment, every single email that's a public comment that I receive will be put in the staff report for the planning commissioners to see and for the city council members to see. You'll also be notified if you're not already a part of the city's planning commission email list. You can send me an email and I'll make sure that you're signed up for that. But we'll be sending a notice when the public hearing is scheduled, and then you'll have an opportunity to speak during the public hearing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
One more question, and this should literally be one word. What's the elevation of the building? I see that it looks like it's about 8 stories, and that would be consistent with the transit.
Yeah, 75.
75 feet?
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, next building proposal. Let's
Thanks,
move
guys.
right along. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, Erin. Nice to see your face. I'm making you co-host. You have so many powers.
There we go. Thank you. Nice to see everybody. So I'll just give a brief overview of what's going on here, and I'll let the architect and designer give a full overview of the project. It's a new multi-story development, and I am pulling up the location map, and my computer's decided to fizzle out. I was all ready half an hour ago. Is that? So just a sec. I have to reopen this file.
Marcus, I hear you have a 30-second pitch for your CIP application. Would you like to give it right now?
Do it.
Raise your hand. Where are you at? Marcus. CIP, capital improvement.
Hey,
go, Marcus,
I'm
go,
here.
go.
Hey, my name is Marcus Wright.
Hi, Marcus
I'm a
Wright.
resident my name is Marcus Wright. I live on Gold Avenue, and I am putting in a CIP application for Jefferson Park. And basically, it's just an application asking the city for some money to spend in the park. I'm asking for some pretty basic things like benches and lighting to make it safer. And then also for some things like a walking path around the berm, or maybe fencing or a pickleball court or something. So one part of the application is community support. So if you're interested in more information or want to send a letter of support, send an email to Friends of Jefferson Park SLC, which I will put in the chat at gmail.com.
Marcus,
Thanks,
I
everyone.
hear this is a resubmittal, and that means that your chances are improved with this application cycle. I think that's terrific.
I don't know if that's true, but I hope so. It's the second time I'm submitting an application with some other neighbors.
I heard that rumor. I also heard that the Housing Authority is also going to submit a letter of support. And that's great, because there are a lot of families that live in the apartments in the affordable housing surrounding Jefferson Park, and their kids might need a safe place to play and walk around the park. That seems super cool to me. I also noticed that the person who heads up the board of the Housing Authority used to be mayor of Salt Lake City. So maybe a letter from him might count for
We'll take
something.
whatever we can get.
I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, Marcus, would you be willing to type that into the chat?
Yep, I'll put it in the chat. Thanks for
Oh, I
the
think
time.
that'd be fantastic. And if anybody wants to like type some positive messages in the chat about why this would be great, I'd be happy to include those in a letter of support. Hypothetically, realistically, etc. All right, great use of time. Let's
All right,
boogie.
here is the context of the proposal. It is split zoned between the CG, the General Commercial District, and the Downtown D2 District. I've got a drawing further down that shows where that split is. On the west side is CG, east side's D2. There are more design standards for the D2, so it's got the zoning's more strict. I think the most notable
So we're
issue
looking
with this.
at okay, we're looking at 800 South. And
Yep,
we're looking
sorry.
in between third West and Fourth West. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And there's
Kil-
beloved Kilby Court right there up
Yeah.
at the top.
Yep, and that's the most notable item on this
Oh.
proposal.
Terrific. Thank you.
With that, I'll just pass it on to Stephen and to Noah. They've got a good presentation put together, and I'll be happy to answer any specifics about zoning that might come up. And stop sharing. So if they don't already have authority, pass it on.
Okay, I think, can everybody hear me?
We can all hear you, and you should all have magical co-host powers.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Droll. I'm an architect with Valerio DeWalt Train.
Hi,
I think
Steve Joel.
Hi, thanks, Amy. To get us started, I think a representative of the ownership group, Jeremy Kernan, is also on and was going to kick us off introducing our team and then turn it back over to the design team. And specifically, I'll have my colleague Noah Bentley walk us through the project overview. Thank you.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes,
Yes.
Jeremy, no problem.
Sorry, a little delay there. My name is Jeremy Kerman with Convexity. We are the owner of the property and developers. And obviously we met Valerio DeWalt Train, who is our architect. Just a little bit about Convexity. We do developments all over the country. We started in Chicago. We have various developments in Nashville and Dallas and Minnesota. And we have a couple other things that we partnered with in Salt Lake City. We are currently doing a 31-story tower, which is commonly referred to as the Worthington Tower, although we have not named the building yet, but that is currently under construction. And so we are very familiar with Salt Lake City. We love the market. And, this particular property, I know it is, one aspect of it is, Kilby Court is near and dear to everyone's heart. So I think it's, really important for everyone to know that, we have had discussions with the city about, keeping it open and, making a verbal commitment to keeping it open. So we know that's really important. I think our development really will complement the neighborhood. And, I just want to turn it over to our design team so they could talk about, how the design was incorporated or things that were incorporated in the design that really, blend into the Greenery District initiatives. So with that, I will hand it over to VDT.
Thanks, Jeremy. Again, as Steve said, I'm Noah Bentley, an architect here at Valerio DeWalt Train. Hopefully everybody can see my screen okay. This image that's up on the screen is just the kind of elevational view of facing 800 South. And I'm gonna skip through things and go kind of quickly just in the nature of time here. We already talked about who we are.
as with every project that we do here at VDT and with Convexity, we always like to start from a place of trying to figure out the place, right? Figure out the site, figure out the neighborhood. We immediately noticed the Kilby Court venue. I don't think that will go unnoticed. And as Jeremy said, the current plan and the layout of the building on the site keeps its footprint there. So no change there, but we also wanted to recognize kind of the creative culture that is buzzing in the Granary district. There's murals everywhere. The mural on the bottom left is just north of our site. Recognize Fisher Brewing as a little bit of an icon on the block on the corner. And then try and establish opportunities that we can start to use as parameters as we build our design up, right? And so we mentioned preserving the music venue, the neighborhood as a whole. There's a housing shortage, right? So we want to add housing. We want to recognize that there is a need for neighborhood retail here, so specifically small neighborhood retail or potentially markets, restaurants, and how we could find a way to put that together. We thought there was an opportunity, right, with Kilby Court in the middle of the block, trying to find a way to connect 8 South and 7 South and recognize that we're across from the Fleet block as well, and try and establish some kind of an opportunity to have a future connection with whatever might happen there. And then again, build upon this rich character that is apparent as you spend any time in the Granary district in the neighborhood here. So as we come to build our project goals based on our site analysis and things that we can work towards, we certainly want to complement the Granary district, right? There's no sense in trying to bulldoze your way in. And we want to invite pedestrian movement through our site. I know there was some talk previously about that. So we want to establish small neighborhood retail space that's set back from the sidewalk with space for patios, space for all of the people that move in as tenants to these retail spaces to spill out onto the street a little bit. We want to provide additional green space, just knowing that everybody loves green space and every project is enhanced by it. Every neighborhood is enhanced by it. And then again, respect kind of the historical context, knowing that there is a lot of significant buildings around as well as significant materials, and we want to be authentic to all that. So a little bit of building information. The project's 336 units currently. There's 291 parking stalls. Our few slides here are littered with renderings of what the project is currently slated to look like. And the parking part of our strategy was to provide ample parking, but also hide it, right? So we're not staring at parking garages. We've got a bike storage facility planned for 98 bikes currently, knowing that we're also not far from a track station, right? And not far from the downtown core. We expect there to be a lot of bike traffic. And then again, expanding on the retail, it's currently 50 foot deep. So it can host a number of different uses, and there's currently 64 or 6,500 square feet of it. Looking closer at a plan, a little bit of a different view here. As we thought about the connection and as we thought about the music venue at the back of the site, or really at the center of the block, we thought it was important to respect the master plan initiatives and make sure that we incorporate the mid-block walkway that's currently part of the pedestrian master plan. So the building is pushed west on its site, and you can see, I don't know if everybody can see my mouse moving, but there's kind of a large green artery through the eastern side of the site that is the mid-block walkway. Based on zoning, those are required to be 10 feet. We wanted it to be more generous, so it's pushed further west, and it's a little over 20 feet wide. It's landscaped on both sides, and we see it as kind of this urban connection that connects 8 South to 7 South into the dead end of the Kilby Court alley in the back, but also as a means of ensuring there's kind of access from all sides to the music venue for the pedestrian experience. You can see a little bit of the retail space on the southwest corner here that's pushed back with space for available patio space there, depending on who moves in, they can take advantage of that. And then you can see a little bit of the building layout. There's some private amenities for the tenants there, but you know, we really wanted to enhance the site with more landscaping than is required. And then I'll end, as I said, I'll keep it brief. I know we're kind of running up on time here, but here's a kind of a current aerial shot. Obviously our building is much taller than what's surrounding it right now, but you know, we're not using up all of the available height right now. That you know, there's about an additional 40 feet that's there that we're not using, just recognizing that we're the first ones on the block here. But with that, I'll kind of end my presentation and hand over the mic.
George has an interesting question, and we have somebody on to talk about the bond. And that might be an interesting way to dovetail into that conversation. But before we go there, why don't we focus just on this project by itself?
One question I had. So it sounds like Kilby Court will be, you're trying to keep that as a music venue that would be available for what it's the same purpose it's serving now.
Yeah, that's correct. Right now you know, besides the addition of some new landscaping out front and the addition of the mid-block walkway that passes in front of it, the current layout and current existing structures of Kilby Court are unchanged.
My one question, I guess, would be, you know, the tenants of the building might have an issue with loud music. Is there some thought process with that so that it, you know, doesn't become a conflict with the music venue?
I think that, you know, there are a few units that are close to it. It does step back much farther as you get kind of directly in front of Kilby Court, but you know, there's no denying that there's concerts there just about every night, and perhaps there's a few units for some music lovers, you know, that get a front row seat.
Yeah, in some ways we see it as an amenity for the residents, for sure.
Well, and I love the walkway. As somebody who frequents Fisher all the time, I appreciate, you know, any mid-block crossing that is added to the neighborhood. So,
thank you.
one question in the chat about the affordable units. Are you guys looking at any affordability with this, or?
Go for it, Jeremy, please.
Amy, if you're able to unmute Jeremy. Oh, there we go. I got him. You can unmute Jeremy now.
Sorry, I'm in a loud house, so I was trying to, I didn't realize all the restrictions. You know, we have looked at, you know, various ways to incorporate it. You know, it's not, it is not a requirement of our zoning. And, you know, I will say it's something that we continue to look at, but it is difficult to incorporate. And, you know, to be honest, I mean, we've just been running the numbers and it's hard to make that work. And that is a reality of, you know, what our intent of when we purchased and, you know, what the provisions were related to and restrictions. So, you know, at this time, we're not looking to incorporate affordable housing.
And I'm just looking in the chat here, so feel free to answer any of the questions that you see in the chat. But these are for sale units or rentals? What are we?
These are rental units. They are not for sale.
And my understanding is that this Kilby Court is owned by the same, by you, is that correct? It's the same, all one project?
It is.
Okay.
It is. I mean, yes, we own, all of the property and intend, like we said earlier, to continue keeping Kilby Court open, so everybody can enjoy the music there.
Yeah. And what is the maximum height that you could build? You had mentioned that you weren't reaching the full potential of height there.
The maximum height that's allowed within the current zoning district that is directly adjacent to Fisher, or the east side of the site, is up to 120 feet with design review approval. This building's 86 feet tall.
Okay. And have you met with the owners of Fisher to kind of work with them for noise and stuff like that as well? Because I know from time to time they have music and stuff too in the back area of their establishment.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I did not hear part of it.
Oh, no worries. I was just wondering if you were in contact with Fisher Brewing and talking about noise and stuff with them as well, since they do have live music and things at their establishment from time to time.
We have talked to them, but we have not, we haven't really talked as much about what their plans are. When they have live music. But that is a good point for us to have conversations about it. I do think, Steve and Noah, we're looking at this to complement those type of urban activation. And, I know some people could see that being as an impediment to living in our neighborhood, but, in our building, but there's others that are definitely drawn to it and that type of activity. And, I think there's a delicate balance there, but, I do feel that most people that would be looking at this development or at this property to live in, and we certainly would be telling them, it's a way to be in an active urban community, and that includes all the good things that are around, including Kilby and Fisher Brewing. Certainly we don't want to create any issues for our residents.
Looked like Cara Cope has a question. I'm gonna see if I can unmute her. Cara, you're able to unmute.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Thanks for taking my comment.
Yeah.
I guess I feel conflicted about a lot of things. It's great that you're thinking of keeping Kilby Court and that you're working with Fisher. And that's great. But the bottom line is that y'all are developers making a lot of money on this deal. And you're forgetting a human component when you say, we had a chance to maybe think about putting in affordable housing, but we are at this point not going to, basically, of what you said. So I just want to say, I wish you luck with all the millions you're making. And remember, when you're seeing the people in tent cities, you didn't help. It's really sad and disappointing, but I understand there's a buck to be made. So you have to put humans first. You have to, or you're going to be buried with that million. That's blood money. So I just wanted to let you know, have the kind of life you deserve. And with that, I'll let that go.
All right, thank you, Kara. And then looks like we have Star, who's also got a question. I'm gonna try and see if I can unmute.
I think Sitar's had his hand up since.
Oh, is he?
He
Okay.
originally put his hand up to indicate that he, yes.
Okay, well, I unless anybody else has put something in the chat, I'm not seeing much more, unless you are, Amy.
Ooh, my heart is beating. You sounded wonderful.
Have you seen any other questions there, Amy?
None that are super precise. Did we talk about what the height of the building that is being proposed next to Fisher? I think we got that. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yes. Yeah,
we
got
talked
that.
about that.
Sorry.
Yeah. I think there was that one early on that you kind of skipped because you wanted to hold it for the end for the transition to fleet block.
Yes. Should we go to the,
Yes. So
I will put my contact info down.
ooh,
for
Aaron,
people
you
to-
turned into a scary robot or somebody in the
Uh-oh.
witness protection program.
Oh, no.
Nope.
And now we can't hear you at all,
Nope.
but I believe that you're trying to communicate with us.
Can you hear me now?
There we
Yeah,
go.
now we can
Yes,
hear
there
you.
we go.
And
Thanks,
you don't
Aaron.
sound too bad,
I
too
will put my
scary.
contact info down so people can send me their comments and concerns.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for
Thank you
giving
guys
us the
for presenting.
opportunity.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
appreciate
we
it.
Thank you,
appreciate
everyone.
it.
Thank you all for sitting through this.
Minerva, am I saying your name right?
You are, thank you.
You're welcome. I have just made you co-host.
Okay, I know we're really short on time, so I'm going to try to like zoom through this presentation. So thank you for having me, by the way.
Well, you've already heard a few people talk about how we genuinely care about the little open space that we have in our neighborhood. So I hope that tells you that, you know, we actually care about what you're speaking about this evening. So it's more than just a formality. We would like to know, what is this open space bond potentially going to do for Ballpark and Central 9th? Could it help Jefferson Park? Could it help the fleet block? What can you tell us?
Yeah, so just to preview, there's a lot of legality with what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not. As a city employee, I'm not allowed to advocate or not advocate for the bond. So I have my notes here that I'm supposed to follow. So if it looks like I'm looking away, that's what I'm reading. So I'll start off with a map to show where the projects will be located. So this November, Salt Lake City voters have an opportunity to vote on the Parks, Trails, and Open Space General Obligation Bond. The bond provides the opportunity to build on existing investments to enhance the public land system. If passed, the city plans to fund 8 significant projects across the city, shown on the map above. And this was identified through public input, priorities expressed in the Reimagine Nature, preliminary polling data, and the geographic distribution, equity, and level of service across the city, and the mayor's 2022 plan. So project budgets plus a 20% contingency add up to 85 million. And the next one, this is all the opportunities that the bond will focus on. So repurposing the old Glendale Water Park, identifying new parks and neighborhoods where few green spaces exist, updating facilities, improving water quality, pollinator habitat, and migratory nesting grounds, completing the Folsom Trail and improving connections from the east and west, and then also increasing tree canopy. So if the bond is passed, these are the first few projects that will be funded. We've already done engagement for the Glendale Park. You can view the Glendale Regional Park Vision Plan online. And then the next projects that will be funded are the Reimagine Neighborhood Parks, Trails, and Open Space, Folsom Trail Fleet Block Project, and Fairmont Park. If bond funding is approved, other projects with more planning and public engagement opportunities, including completion of the Folsom Trail, Reimagine Neighborhood Parks, Trails, and Open Spaces improvements to Fairmont Park and the Fleet Block. So all bonds will involve comprehensive community engagement to determine the final design and implementation plans. And then public engagement for each project will be determined based on the needs of the site and current status of public project input. So I know you were interested in learning how Fleet Block would be affected. The proposed bond funding for this project is $6 million. And the description is that the Fleet Block the Fleet Block Park will be a new park in the Granary District southwest of downtown and a part of a larger 10-acre former city fleet facility that is still owned primarily by the city. This block is currently being considered for development, and desired uses include public open space that promote gathering, safety, comfort, and community well-being. Once the space design and programming are determined, bond funding is intended to support the implementation of community identified amenities within the public open space. So again, it will involve a lot of public engagement to determine the design and implementation. And then, yeah, we're currently working with community members, or the city has been working with directly with community members for several years to create a unified vision and to rezone the Fleet Block to allow for future development. Community members have clearly identified the need for significant open space and recreation opportunities on the Fleet Block. The Salt Lake City Public Lands Department intends to build on existing engagement and work directly with the public to identify specific priorities for assessment and amenity.
Minerva, I'm so sorry, but could you tell us when we might, as a community, get more engagement about the Fleet Block? It's just, I know one of the things that, you know, as somebody who runs community meetings, it's hard to just be read to, because then I can always just send out a link to the community and they can read things by themselves.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I'm sorry. I'm not sure when engagement will be starting, but I can look, I can ask the planners working on the project and then get back to you to determine when engagement is scheduled to plan on the Fleet Block property.
We'd appreciate that.
Yeah, and then just to jump down, I know like one of the—
So it sounds like Jefferson Park would not be included in any of this funding.
It's not, but with the neighborhood project, so let me go back. The Reimagine Neighborhood Parks, Trails, and Open Space, that allows for community members to identify projects that they want investment in. So the bond will be allocating $10.5 million to each district, or sorry. So there will be $10.5 million for the Reimagine Neighborhood Parks, Trail, and Open Space. And then this money will be allocated throughout each of the districts to identify one park that they want to renew. So if Jefferson Park was a high need, then funding could be allocated. It's just really important that community members speak to the mayor and council members about where they see funding needs and where they would like that investment, because defining how parks will be determined for funding is still being developed. And just to, I know another common question is, how much is this going to cost? If the bond is approved, approximately $53.80 per year. That's for primary residents valued at $576,000 and $97.83 per year for a business or secondary residence of the same value. But if the bonds are approved by voters and are issued in 2 or more installments, depending on market conditions, it is possible that the cost of the bonds would not increase the existing property tax burden. I know we're really short on time, so I'm just going to jump through. These are some important dates. And then if you want to follow up with more information about the bond, we do have the website available, and you can also submit questions about the bond through this email and then the phone number and website, and we'll be answering questions through that email.
And is this PowerPoint on the slcparkbonds.com website?
I can send you a PDF version of the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. And well,
Doug,
I guess is there
all the
information?
material is on the website. It's not in PowerPoint, but it's the same
that's what I
material.
mean. Yeah. And one other question with bonds, you know, if this bond passes, it doesn't mean all these projects will definitely happen. It's just priorities that the city puts out for use for the money, right?
Yeah, these are the projects that have been identified by council and approved. So most likely they will be funded. But yeah, they're the proposed projects. Comments?
I'm just looking in the chat here to see if there's any other comments.
I don't see anything new, and I feel like all the hands up, I think, are presentation hands from 2 prior presentations.
Yeah. Well, thank you for presenting this. I'm excited to see Fleet Block being mentioned there as a park. So.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm sorry for the format. I'm really restricted on how I can present. So thank you.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And
thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'll send you the follow-up information with the PDF version so you have that available.
Thank you so much.
All right. I'm not sure if Will Becker is on our call. I should check. And if not, I should skip ahead to Michelle Hoon. Will, if you were on the call, would you please put your hand up in the air? Oop. All right. I don't see Will at this moment, but I do see Michelle. Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Hi there.
Thank you, Amy. Can I share my screen? Do I have the capability to do that? Let's see here. Oh, you have to give me access.
You should have that magical access at this moment.
Oh, good. All right. Let's share this. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me a couple of minutes to speak with you today. My name is Michelle Hoon. I oversee the homeless engagement and response team for Salt Lake City. Thank you, Amy, for giving me a little bit of time on your schedule. I know this is definitely a super packed meeting, so I will not take up too much of everybody's time. But I would
actually like to mention, we did even turn down people for this meeting. This is,
oh wow,
this was, I know. We actually, this is what happens when we pick and choose.
I know you guys
okay,
are so
apologies.
busy. No, thank you so much for having me. You guys are so busy in Ballpark, and so I really appreciate this opportunity to come and speak with you a little bit today. about some updates related to the State Homelessness Mitigation Fund. What this is historically, so everybody understands that there is a fund that the state put together during the transition from the one downtown shelter to the 3 new homeless resource centers. What that fund does is it provides some funding to different cities that host homeless resource centers to be able to use that funding as they see fit to mitigate concerns that would come up as a result of having an increased number of people who are experiencing homelessness in your neighborhoods. Historically, Salt Lake City has been a recipient of this fund. This fund has been in operation, I think, for 4 years now, I want to say. And Salt Lake City has received funding from this fund every year. That has been to the tune of somewhere between $100,000 and $350,000 every year. This year, the funding was as a result of actions at the state level in the state legislature. That fund was doubled. So typically the way that this fund works is all cities that do not host homeless resource centers, they have to pay a portion of their sales tax funding into this fund. It goes into a restricted account at the state, and then the state determines how to redistribute those funds to cities that do host homeless resource centers. As I mentioned, Salt Lake City has gotten somewhere between $100,000 and probably $350,000 every year. That was upped this year to $2.75 million. So that is significantly more money than we have received in prior years. And we are definitely really glad to be recipients of that funding. So with a pretty sizable increase in funding, what we have applied to the state to do, and they have approved us to do, is increase a lot of different things. So what we are going to do with that $2.75 million, 175-ish thousand of that is going to go to my team, the Homeless Engagement and Response Team. That is going to fund 2 community engagement coordinators. What those community engagement coordinators do is they process your SLC mobile requests. They coordinate different responses. They work with Advantage Services to go out and provide cleaning services throughout the city. And they work with our outreach partners to try and get outreach services out to people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness in your neighborhoods. So there will be 2 community engagement coordinators on our team. We have had 1, Allison Dupler, who has been in this meeting many, many times. And so now there will be 2 people who will be fulfilling that role. Oh, sorry about my cat. Additionally, we will be increasing funding for Volunteers of America to provide both street outreach, case management support, and business and community liaison support. On top of that, about $2.3 million will go to the Salt Lake City Police Department to implement 2 new police squads. Those will be focused on sort of policing the areas on foot around the homeless resource centers. They will not be necessarily focused on inside the homeless resource centers, but they want to make the areas directly adjacent to the resource centers very safe places to do business and to live. So there will be 2 squads. There will be a sergeant and 5 officers that will be operating in conjunction and in partnership with the homeless resource centers. In addition to that, in prior years, what we have done is we have used some of that city's mitigation fund that we have been recipients of in the past, and we used that to increase the footprint of the Downtown Ambassador Program. If you guys are not familiar with the Ambassador Program, we should definitely have them come and present to you all. They have been
we have had the Downtown Ambassadors present to us multiple times this year.
Good. I'm glad to hear
ready.
that. Good. Glad to hear that. The Downtown Ambassador Program what we're now able to do as a result of having extra funding that's saved up some space in the general budget, in general city budget. And so our city council approved $1.2 million to expand the Downtown Ambassador program in Ballpark and Central City, North Temple and Rio Grande. The Ambassador program will be expanding to 3rd West in the Ballpark area. The Central City area that they have been operating in will stay roughly the same, but the Ballpark area, they will be expanding to 3rd West. That is a community need that has been identified. So we are definitely really glad to see that community resource expanded in your neighborhood. So that is the general plan for this 2.75 million. We did just receive the award from the state. And so we are working on getting hired up for all of these positions, and they should be operating in your neighborhoods very soon. And I'd love to answer any questions if anybody has some. Cute dog, Amy.
He's a rescue.
Oh. I'm going to look at the chat and see if anybody has put questions in the chat.
I'm unmuting Bob Danielson because he had his hand up.
Sure,
and
Bob.
He's not a developer from 2 presentations ago.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, how can I help you?
How are you?
How are you?
I was breaking up there a little bit. I just want to clarify something. So it's $2.7 million, right?
2.75 million, yes. Significantly more than we've gotten in the past.
Good. So you said there was 175,000 for a community engagement employee, is that right?
That's two community engagement coordinators.
So that'll make 3?
No, sorry. So that's one existing community engagement coordinator, and then we're adding a second one.
So you're already paying the 175 is for the second one?
No, sorry. That 175 split between 2 community engagement coordinators.
How was the last engagement coordinator being paid?
Fully with the city's mitigation funding.
Got it. Okay. So that was part of the previous year's mitigation funding.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that. And then you said that what was going to the VOA and for what?
265. If you look on the screen here, it'll show you the breakdown of all of the funding. So 265 goes to Volunteers of America.
And what are they doing? Because I can't see for some reason. I'm on my phone and.
You're good, no worries. So that goes to increasing business and community liaison support and street outreach case management support. So we have 1 business and community liaison and 1 street outreach case manager that have historically been funded with this fund, and we're going to double that support so that we've got both Central City and Ballpark covered pretty well.
So 265 more employees or 2 employees?
That will support 4 employees.
Got it. Okay. And then the next question is there anything in that fund or allocated for property owners to mitigate or reimburse them for the damages to their property around especially the shelters?
There's not anything included specifically for that. I will say the application process to the state for this funding, it starts about a year before we ever get the funding. So we actually applied for the fiscal year 23 funding about a year ago. We have seen the requests that have come through, and we've looked at options for trying to fund potentially options to support businesses directly with this funding, but that is not something that is coming in fiscal year 23. So in this current fiscal year, and that's just because we have to submit that application to the state about a year in advance. So we're currently looking at applying for fiscal year 24 And we're looking at different options potentially for what we can do with increased funding if that's available in fiscal year 24.
Got it.
That's just how the state grant cycle works.
Got it. Well, and you mentioned the ambassador program that's being funded straight from the city, right?
Yeah, that comes directly from city general fund dollars. What the state mitigation fund did is it kind of took away, it gave us some capacity. It created some capacity within the city to be able to support that $1.2 million to expand the ambassador program.
Got it. So question, it's a serious question, and I'm not being facetious, but I don't want to sound that way. But so we have 1.2 million for the ambassador program. Great. We have, and I listed every city council meeting, we have $25,000, whether you're aware of this or not, check into it, that are going towards feminine hygiene products into men's bathrooms. There's money in the general fund to cover the broken windows and everything for the businesses that are, especially, I'm not even speaking for myself. I'm talking about the gentleman who owns the Subway down the street, Christina's Barber Shop. I'm talking about one man, two man, small businesses. I'm a small business too, but even smaller than me. Every time a $2,000 window breaks, it's coming out of their personal pocket.
Yeah, I hear you. I definitely hear you. I can't speak to other funds. I know I know about the Homeless Services General Fund, but I don't really know about other funds. So my apologies about that. But the council and the mayor's office, they get together every year around probably March and start formulating the city budget. And so it is always a good idea to reach out to your council members, give them some feedback on what you would like to see funded. And we're always happy to help with that process. If there's anything that we can do.
I want to take up everyone's time. So the last question is this, just for clarifications, I'm trying to navigate this. So first of all, our council person doesn't respond to any of us. So that is of little use to us. So when Amy Fowler, a month or so ago, and I'm asking this for reasons, I'm trying to figure out how the money is divvied up. At the spur of a moment at a council meeting, asked for that she asked for 50, but they said it only cost 25 for those feminine hygiene products in men's bathrooms. What's that fund? How do I get into that fund to mitigate the damages and pay for the damages around this area?
I would have to look into that. My apologies. I'm really not sure. I'm happy to look into it and try and figure out where that came from for you.
In finding that out. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. Thanks so much.
Sure thing. I see that there's definitely chats coming through, but
that is different than if the chats contain a question, Michelle.
Yes. I'm trying to scan and see if there's anything. Oh, there is a question. Can I confirm the hours that the ambassadors are available? What's the best non-police resource after hours? So the ambassadors are an awesome option for sure when they are in operation. I should have looked. I'm so sorry. I should have looked to see what the ambassadors.
Allison put the hours in Tuesday through Saturday, 12 to 8:30. That is still accurate.
That is accurate. Yes, and that is why it is important to many people.
If you ever need the number and you don't have it on you, but you have my number, feel free to text me. I keep it on my phone. I'm happy to send it to you. And I probably call the ambassadors, I don't know, 4 times a week.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah, they're awesome. They're a fantastic resource. We also got a question about speaking to funding for subsequent years, 2024 and beyond. Can we expect the same level? That is a really good question. Thank you. Yes, we are expecting that level of funding to continue. This was built into state code in the most recent legislative session. There's always the possibility that the legislature could change their minds about this, but I think that they really see the value in it. They want to make sure that cities that do take on homeless resource centers are well supported, because they know that it can be challenging for cities for sure. And so I would expect to see that level of funding continue. They also made some changes in the most recent legislative session to how that funding is allocated, and it's a formula currently. Before it was a grant and we all had to apply. all of the cities that were eligible because we had homeless resource centers in our cities, we had to apply. And that is now formula based, and it is based on how many beds, how many shelter beds you as a city are providing to the system. So Salt Lake City has the most homeless resource center beds out of all of the cities that provide shelter. And so we are eligible for the greatest amount of funding, which is definitely useful and helpful, I think, for our neighborhoods. Does any of that homeless funding go to support homeless assistance for the homeless population? As I mentioned, VOA street outreach case management support is supported by this funding. So yes, answer to that question. And I think that might be all as far as questions in the chat. Anything else I can answer really quickly? I know we're pretty much out of time.
I am super sympathetic to the need to solve the literal broken windows problem. We know other cities have started to address this. Seattle just developed a funding mechanism to repair broken windows on some of their small businesses that are around homeless resources in their cities. And these can be a real burden on some of the businesses that, you know, when you're thinking about those big storefront windows. I have a lot of sympathy for, and we know Michelle Goldberg, whose dog daycare business is across the street from the Gail Miller. She's sustained tens of thousands of dollars of damage just this year and hasn't been compensated. It's such a shame. I know she's struggling. I'd encourage anybody who needs any kind of pet care to please consider using her as an option. Really, seriously, please consider using her. It would be helpful. She employs folks who work at the Homeless Resource Center. It would be a big help to her and the community of Paramount Avenue. All right, moving right along. I think Will might not have joined us this evening. That is okay. Because I think we still have plenty to talk about. All right. Is anybody here left from my hometown? Did those folks stick around? Folks from the city left with us tonight. We went kind of over. Josh, I see that you're on. Would you like to chat with us this evening?
Hello. Hey, everyone.
Hey, Josh.
Josh Arboyo, Mayor's Community Outreach Team. I don't have too much to share with the bond presentation having happened already. We've been dividing up with public lands to make sure that that's presented to all the community councils. So thanks to Minerva for presenting that here tonight. I think you referenced my hometown for the alleyway cleanup, which you, I'm sure, are aware of the details for this Saturday. I don't know if you want to share that, or I'm happy to do that.
I think you need to share that, actually. I'm not fully aware of the details. I know that my hometown is an organization that is a statewide organization, and they are based out of West Valley. Is that right? And I know they've encouraged me to watch a video hosted by Mike Lee on YouTube. And I don't know much else about their organization, and I don't know, are they expecting the neighborhood to show up? Are they showing up and they're welcoming the neighborhood to show up if they're available? I don't understand how they identified that alley as a priority when we cleaned it up last week. I just had a lot of questions.
Yeah, so my hometown has reached out to our office, specifically to Katie Reiser in our office, who's the volunteer coordinator, and to identify projects throughout the neighborhoods to do service projects. I think they have a network of people that they reach out to for volunteers, and they invite the communities that they go to take part in their service projects. They've done a number of things around the Rose Park area, cleaning alleyways there as well. And community members have gotten involved there. They usually coincide with days of service. So I think the last one they did was on September 10th, for coinciding with 9/11, the day of service there. And then I think this Saturday is another day of service. They're coordinating projects throughout the city and the valley. And so one of them is that alleyway. And so that's my understanding of it. Let me see if I'm able to put this into the chat there. I shared a PDF of the flyer for that alleyway cleanup on Saturday morning. It's loading. It should
Right, and
appear in the chat
again,
here in a
do you
second.
have a understanding of, do they have a certain number of volunteers who are showing up and the community is welcome, or vice versa?
Yes, the community is welcome. I think they do have a good number of volunteers for the area of this alleyway, and so
do you understand why the alley was identified when the ballpark community cleaned it up last week?
I think it might have come from a few weeks ago that they had identified it based on conversations that through our office about alleyways in the ballpark area that needed attention. That was one of them that popped up, and they've been wanting to expand more into the ballpark neighborhood to do more projects there in the neighborhood. And so I think that's how that came up. I'd have to ask them and ask Katie Reiser to get a whole history of how that came to be. But
I just know that it feels like a missed opportunity, considering that we have more than one alley in ballpark that needs attention. Like, yeah.
And it certainly won't be the last one that they do. They want to really expand and especially going into before it gets too cold to do things outside, to do a number of cleanups, leaf pickups, all sorts of things in the fall and in the ballpark area. I see a suggestion there for 2100 South on ramp.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of other areas that have. Ouch, Dan. I think there were a lot of other areas that it would have been great to direct additional effort at, but anyway. I'm sure. I'm sure any alley will benefit from attention in the ballpark neighborhood.
So really appreciate
even if it's just a week later. Danielle, you know what? I'm not difficult to get in contact with.
So,
the odd thing was, Danielle, we encountered this group when we had bags of trash in our hands while we were actively cleaning up this alley. It was a strange disconnect.
Yes, so I'll connect with Katie Reiser in our office tomorrow to speak with my hometown. And it would have been nice to have them. I don't know if they were invited. I'm sure, were they invited to the meeting to share about this?
They were, but as you recognize, this meeting kind of went longer than we thought, but they were invited. They received the agenda, and I guess they couldn't stick around.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely like to have a conversation with them to have better coordination to, make sure we're not going over the spots where community has already gone. It's definitely not helpful. And I know that my hometown, they, volunteer group, not affiliated with the city in any way. We're just trying to help them out to identify spots where they can do service projects and want to make sure that they're connected to the community as best as possible. So I will connect with Katie on that.
Anything else that we should cover in terms of city engagement stuff?
Not that I can think of. I know that Will Becker, I think he was on the meeting earlier, might have left, but the Kensington Byway, the Byways project, Again, I wasn't
I
necessarily prepared
connected
to
with him
present
over
on that
email.
because he was.
I connected with him over email and let him know that you said that that we talked about how he would present again this month, but maybe it didn't work out.
So in the chat here, I'm putting the link to the Kensington Byway project to read, get more information on that there. There's currently an interactive map on there to participate in.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I saw that the comment period, I saw on the website that the comment period closes today. Is that true?
That I'd have to take a look at that.
The website says the comment period closes on July 6th. I guess one of the reasons we were hoping to get a presentation from Will today is that I was hoping to be able to like pivot from that engagement. I can announce it, on our Facebook page and stuff.
Yeah,
tomorrow,
the survey still appears to be open at this point. So yeah, it would be good to direct that to Will.
Okay, will do. Just
Can you hear me?
yes, thank you.
Hi, Amy, everyone. Good evening. I saw that the ballpark station plan was perhaps part of the agenda today, although maybe not as much of a focus as the other items we were just covering.
No, I'm afraid it's not. It actually was, they had
Okay.
a public comment period at City Council on Tuesday, and City Council will vote on it later, but there's no
Got it.
longer any opportunity
Okay.
for us. You can contact our City Council member directly, but there's no longer an opportunity for us to give public comment to City Council. But the only thing that we can do is contact the folks who are voting on it directly.
Got it. And is there a site for that? Because yeah, I feel like there's some sort of disconnect here because I provided some early feedback and was told it was early, and now it's like too late.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
no
I think you'll need to
yeah.
reach out via email or phone call directly to City Council
Okay.
members, not via like an
Not here. Okay.
interface or anything like that. You'll need to just directly to our City Council members because it's going to be their votes
Gotcha.
that are going to be what changes it or what
Perfect.
decides that it'll pass. And I'm
Okay.
sorry to make it like that, like clear and
No
blunt, but
worries.
that's
That's
what
really
it's going to
helpful.
be.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Thank you, Amy. Great.
Sure.
No, that was my only questions. Thank you.
Hey, Ashley.
Good evening, Amy. How are you?
Hey there.
It's so good to see your face again. Seems like it was just literally on Tuesday that I saw you. Good morning, Ballpark folks. My name is Ashley Cleveland. I'm the Deputy Director of Community Outreach for the Mayor's Office. I really appreciate you allowing me to hop on here because I know it is the end of your meeting and you guys have had a very, very long and important conversation about your neighborhood. I just wanted to pop in here to provide a little bit more clarification because there was something missed on my end in regards to the bond presentation. Our bond presentation specifically that outlines, conversations about Fleet Block. I just wanted to remind everyone and give a little update that we are still meeting with the families on a regular basis, and there will be more further, more outward updates coming in the next couple of months, because I know that there were some questions about when engagement was going to be picking up about that. So if anyone has any questions for me specifically about fleet block in the park and things like that. Minerva and I are here. I'm open to taking a question, but I do not want to take up your meeting and fully respect you guys' time.
Danielle, so sorry. The announcement that I put out earlier, I'm sorry, that was confusing. That was to direct folks to attend Tuesday's city council meeting, and that was about the ballpark station area plan. I tried to squeeze too much into one email. I try to pride myself on not sending too many emails to our email list. And this week there was a city council meeting where they were discussing the station area plan and accepting public comment. And we were meeting as a community council on Thursday night. I'm sorry, that was confusing. I apologize. But I strongly encourage you to reach out to our sitting city council members if you have further comments. I wish that doing that whole engagement process during a pandemic was not ideal. I cannot state that strongly enough. From the very first steps to the end of it, not awesome. As somebody who is involved from step 0, not great. Okay, Doug, am I missing anything on our great, wonderful agenda? Or questions, a need for engagement?
I don't think so. Not that I think that we've missed. I think we covered a lot of ground in the time that we had here. So
Daniela, I'm so sorry you reached out to me about signing into Tuesday's meeting, and that was the disconnect. I'm so sorry. Rats. Blah. Sorry to end on a downer. I care so much about the ballpark station area plan. Blah. Building heights, etc. I'm so worried. I want tree equity for our neighborhood, people. We don't have enough trees in Ballpark. Have you guys looked at the urban forestry plan? There's a big hole in our neighborhood. Oh my goodness. It's gonna make the urban heat island effect so terrible. Sorry, I'm so passionate about it. Doug, back me up.
hey, I agree with you. The more trees, the better in this neighborhood.
All right. Well, I look forward to writing a letter of support for CIP application for Jefferson Park resubmittal.
And we've got one in too for the Central 9th neighborhood as well, for trash cans branding and some other things. And I'll be passing that along in another meeting once we have that one a little more solidified, but it's been submitted. So
trash can branding. Woof.
Well,
sign me up.
Those are two separate things, trash cans and branding. So
why not have the combo?
Oh, that is actually a part of it.
Man, someday there will be a day where we can get Ballpark trash can branding. It's gonna rule. All right. Well, thank you all for your time on this Thursday evening. Next time we meet will be after Election Day. We do have some elections that are relevant to us. And if folks care, there's a recorded East Side candidate forum that folks can go check out. And I believe that there is a DA candidate panel that's relevant there. Were there other relevant candidates from that panel, Doug? I do believe there was at least one.
I'm not sure. It's there's been so many that I can't remember now at this point. after the primaries and the.
I think we're also supposed to vote for state school board.
Oh, yes, state school board, yeah.
I think we're also supposed to vote for state senate.
Yes.
I have this funny feeling. Sheriff, thank you, Bob Danielson. All right, good to remember. Vote.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you, ballparkers. Thank you, Central Ninth. County Clerk, okay, vote the whole ballot. All right, have a lovely evening, folks.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Doug.